You know, in sport, basically, all of the things to get to a level of performance about consistency of good practice, doing the basics, you know, the fundamentals in sport, doing them brilliantly, and that's going to get you a long way there. And then there's a little bit on top, which are going to make the real difference between the performance, high performance, if you like, and excellence. And it's a mixture of those. You can't do one without the other. And I like that, and I see that in when I look at INEOS and how Jim's been admire the pioneering kind of spirit and the determination, and no's not an option. I think I'll learn a lot from that. But also, I'm also challenged by the fact that I think Jim's probably fitter than I am at the minute. And he rode around. You did the
age adjusted.
Did the Mallorca challenge at the weekend, which I did last year. Didn't manage to do it this year. So I think my challenge is going to be to stay as fit as I can and make sure I get my running shoes and cycling shoes on
to
keep up.
By me.
To keep up, yeah.
We have a number of words which we use to try and describe INEOS, and three of those would be grit, rigour, which is my favourite word in business, because you're not successful in business by accident. You have to be rigorous and detailed in your work and your analysis, and humour. Because you're only on this planet once, you've got to enjoy it. And I think the three words apply to Dave and his organisation as well as it does to myself and INEOS. There has to be chemistry, otherwise, it's not going to work. So, but I think we've got a similar approach to life and our business, different businesses, but it's a similar approach. And that's important.
Well, it's an interesting one. There's a sustaining success, which is a challenge in itself. And getting success in the first place is one thing, but then sustaining it is a completely different ball game. And of course, everybody that comes in waves. So you have a current, team, and like any sports team, it transitions. Part of the balance or the overall sort of game of chess and all of that is making sure you've got a new wave of younger talent coming through whilst you maintain the top. And I think you've got to be really careful with that, because if you take your eye off the top a little bit, it drops down 1 or 2%, and you don't focus fully in the young developing side, it doesn't quite go to where it should be, and you end up with mediocrity in the middle, really, and that's no good to anybody. So I think the trick is to try and have these two real clear focuses. And then on top of that, then trying to think about, well, how can the younger guys fast track and learn from the older guys, whilst the older guys are allowed to totally focus on maintaining their performance. So Chris, for example, needs to be absolutely laser-like focused on trying to win the Tour de France again this year, and not have anywhere in the back of his mind any kind of, worry or pressure to say, oh, can you teach Egan Bernal or Pavel Sivakov or Taylor Kogan-Hart what to do? That's not his job, it's our job. But if you've got the right people, they're role model. And Chris is a brilliant role model. So by putting them together and letting them race together, it kind of happens by osmosis, really, rather than forcing it. And I think for me at the minute, when I sit down and draw on the walls like I like to do, they're the kind of challenges. You when you're a coach like Tim Kerrison, he coaches Pavel Sivakov, 21, who just won the Tour of Alps, and he coaches Chris Froome and Geraint Thomas. Now then, how do you alter your coaching style and your approach to Chris and Geraint and adapt it to a 21-year-old who's brilliant at, in performance? He can produce a lot of power, hasn't lived a minute of his life yet. So how does that work? And we spend a lot of time thinking about those kind of things, and I think that's the interest and that's the excitement. And people say, how do you get better? That's how you get better. And that's where you think, because there's no answer. You don't know whether it's going to work or not, so you just got to try. But I think that's what we're constantly on the phone about, drawing pictures and trying to figure out, and that's the joy of it, really.
So, we have this remarkable initiative in schools called the Daily Mile. So she started this regime where she insisted that they all ran or walked a mile a day with the teacher in the class, didn't have to get changed, so there was no aggravation involved in it. And it transformed the pupils' health and their school performance. And we've sort of helped roll that out across the world. But now there are, I think, 1.7, 1.8 million school kids of that age doing the Daily Mile, and it's just mushrooming all the time. So, I think these things, they fit together. They're inspirational, and they get people, out there, and improves health and well-being.
In elite sport, you see a lot go to a few. in a way, to get them where they need. That's just part of it. That's the equation, you know. But then if you can't circle that back down into society somewhere, then it doesn't quite feel like the wheel, to use an analogy, is being completed. But I think that's where the participation, the inspiring, the having a good, you know, having a good effect from that top end through society is very, very rewarding. And you know, one of the things I found the most rewarding actually in my sort of last 20 years has been that impact, and having people stop me in a car, or I'm riding along on my bike and people come up and say, hey, I only started cycling because of you guys, and it's great, you know, and you get the kids who come and see us, and it's a really important factor, and more important actually, and much more pleasurable than maybe we speak about.